I want to talk for a minute about where we are and what may be coming next for us, because I think we are standing at a shift in how we see this virus and how we manage it, and it's really important that all of us understand how our public health officials are going to be thinking about this going forward. So let me start for a moment by pointing out that we live with a large variety of respiratory viruses. Influenza is the most dangerous of them, but after influenza there's a long list of other respiratory viruses, and what we do not do with them is attempt to control transmission. And the reason we don't attempt to control transmission of these respiratory viruses is because we know we can't do it. It's not because influenza doesn't kill lots of people every year, right? Influenza kills, you are more likely to die of influenza than any other infectious disease. That's an absolute truth for everybody in this room. But because influenza can be transmitted by people who don't have symptoms, because it can be transmitted in the community by people who are not very sick, we know that we can't stop the transmission, we just have to live with it. When this new coronavirus appeared, we were stuck because SARS and MERS, okay, the previous, newest emerging coronaviruses were very, very different viruses. They are viruses that do not transmit until people are very ill. And because of that, it was possible with public health measures to control them. So when this new coronavirus started, and clinically it looks quite similar in the severe cases to SARS and MERS, people said, we don't know if transmission of this virus can be contained. And if it can be, well, that's clearly a benefit. We're all very happy that we don't have to live with SARS. So the first focus when this virus appeared was to attempt containment. And it was clear within the first 3 weeks that this was going to be a very difficult and maybe impossible job. And I think the world owes an enormous vote of thanks to China for having done the very best they could to try to demonstrate, to try to make containment succeed. I don't think in Canada that we could have delivered on the same kind of public health measures that China implemented to try to contain spread. But what we're recognizing now is that what happens with most respiratory viruses is happening with this novel virus. You cannot control the spread of it. We have done the very best we can. We're going to hold out for another week, probably, hoping against hope that we will be able to do it. But as you watch things evolve, you recognize that despite an enormous amount of effort, despite the very best that could have been done to attempt containment is not working. Clearly, what China has done has slowed down transmission. Sorry to point out, that's really important. It's bought us time around the world that's very valuable. So it's not that there's no benefit at all. But we're now in this really difficult position because what it's bought for us is only time. So now we're talking about trading off. If we implement restrictive public health measures, we will delay the appearance of this virus. It looks to me like a delay of maybe 6 to 8 weeks, both from sort of watching what's happening and from what we know about the virus's behavior compared to flu. So the modeling of influenza pandemics is this matter of days. Okay? This is a slower moving virus, and so the Chinese control has probably brought us about 2 months. If we continue to do what South Korea is working on, what Italy is working on, we'll continue to buy some additional weeks. And part of the reason we're doing that is because we're hoping, it's only hoping, we're hoping that if we get out of the winter respiratory season, that this virus will have more trouble transmitting, right? Most respiratory viruses transmit more in the winter than the summer. And that, of course, only applies to those of us who are fortunate enough to be in North America. If you live in Australia or South Africa, that's not actually helpful. You might be better off to have the first wave before influenza starts. But we don't know that's what this virus is going to do. It could be that we're just delaying things for 6 to 8 weeks. And those public health measures have an enormous economic impact. And when you have an economic impact, you have a health impact, right? People lose their jobs. People at the edge of the poverty line drop below the poverty line. People stop having enough money to buy food for their children. This is not, you can't sit and say, well, we're working on the coronavirus and we don't care about the economic consequences. Because the economic consequences are health consequences for large amounts of the world. And you have only to look, if you're Canadian, at our discussion this week about rail line, blockading of rail lines, right? It doesn't take very much. You blockade a single rail line, and already people are out of work, and many more people are in danger of being out of work. So when you translate that to shutting down large areas of the world, it's a much more challenging thing. So what you'll hear coming from public health, I think, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, is trying to get the balance right between delaying the onset of cases due to this virus in different parts of the world and the damage that is done by imposing really restrictive public health measures. You can see that's going to be a really difficult thing to do. We're going to need to cut our governments and our public health people some slack on this because there's so many unknowns about this virus that there is no way of getting out your crystal ball and knowing what the right thing to do is, okay? But we'll sit down and think long and hard about it and try to make the best decisions. We're not necessarily going to make all of the best decisions all the time when we look at it in hindsight, as we are going to do afterwards. So I think part of the reason for discussing this is because I think there's this enormous tendency to think that if we just shut down travel, if we just stop Iranians from getting on a plane, that everything will be fixed. But we've just seen China try to do that, right? We've just seen China do a brilliant job of shutting down movement out of Hubei province. And it still failed. That's because it only takes one person. We know that these restrictions for these kind of viruses will fail. So the other thing that we're all going to have to do for the next 2 weeks is control that desire to think that if we just shut down the world, it's going to be okay. Because it's not going to be okay, and almost certainly that shutdown is going to be worse than the coronavirus, right? Coronavirus is really hard to judge how bad it's going to be. Remember how fearful we were of the 2009 pandemic? Okay? And it turned out to be a bad flu season. Okay? We're all hoping that this virus is going to turn out to be a bad flu season. Okay? It may be worse than that. Whatever it is, we're in it together. We will get through this, as a large number of people in China are doing now. But we need to be able to say, we're in this together. We're all going to have to deal with it.